Welcome back, yes, as you've seen there, Mr. Mike Igini, the resident electoral commissioner for Akwa Ibom State, joins us next. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today from our studios in Benin. Well, election management is always a key component in terms of whether or not or to what degree the votes of the people will count. So, yes, we've just recently ended the CVR. And, of course, you know, whenever this happens, there's usually this hue and cry as to why not go with the provisions of the Constitution, the Electoral Act, about 90 days before the time. Something, look, INEC could do a lot better from where they are today. So the different calls. How do you consider these kind of calls, even if you were to compartmentalize them, about the process of CVR?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain, and your entire crew for having me this morning. With respect to the issue about CVR, I think it's very important that we all have to be on the same page as to what the law says should be done. By way of perhaps throwing more light on the Section 17 of the 2022 Electoral Act as related to CVR, the section only says that not less than, and not exactly 90 days to election, that the register should be made ready. I think what people need to understand, and we need to make this very clear to Nigerian people, is that first, when the Act says the register to be made available, which are going to be made available to political parties not less than 90 days, not less than, and not exactly 90 days. It could mean it could be before the 90 days. But the point is this: for the register to be ready for elections, it has to go through different processes. In fact, the assumption under Section 719 is that everything that the Commission needs to do will have to be in place before that 90 days. And what are the things expected to be done? Now that we have officially suspended the CVR process, we have to consolidate, aggregate the data, consolidate, then thereafter run what we call the AFIS, the biometric accreditation system, to weed out all multiple registrants. Thereafter, the Section 19 also says that we must do 1 week display of the voters register for the Commission to accept claims, objections as it relates to either omitted names or names of individuals that ought not to be on that register as identified by people in the area. And how do you do that? You have to produce the preliminary register of voters for this purpose, which means we are going to produce millions of these would-be voters, and a page will be about 10. And that will be pasted in the entire wards and the local government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's a huge work to be done. When that shall have been completed, in fact, that takes another 14 days. People should go and read the Act. You read another 14 days to do all of that. When all of that shall have been completed, the Commission will have to produce the register in 3 sets for the purpose of the election. Now, after doing that, don't forget that the PVC that have been produced now, or rather, those who are registered now, the PVC will have to be produced. After production, they have to be taken to the various states of the Federation for distribution to people. So there's a whole lot to be done. I think that where we are at this point in time is that look at the projection, we're looking over 90 million right now. That the problem we are having, if it's a problem at all, it's not about whether we don't have enough people that will participate in this election. In fact, it's interesting. we are so excited at the level of enthusiasm, the interest shown by Nigeria, which means that the 2023 election is going to be, in terms of participation, it will be a class of its own. Because from what we are saying, it looks as something close to the June 12th election, where everybody was just up and trying to be involved. So really, where we are now, it's not much of a problem. After all, in 2019, we had 84,004,084. Then look at the total voters turnout. But this time around, we are so excited because all these spice and piquancy to the practice of democracy is mass participation. So really, with respect to CVR, I think that what we should be concerned with are what do we do next as we move towards the election with respect to issue about candidates and all of that. Because basically what we are doing now, it's like we are going all over primaries again,
right.
Across the state.
Well, Mr.
Now.
Guinea, we'll get to that. We'll get to that point because I know it's a major talking point. But for a lot of Nigerians, some of them who feel will eventually feel disenfranchised in this whole process, and I mean they've joined their voices to the voices of the CSO saying this should be moved. I know a lot of people that tried to take time off work, went online, then realized there were different issues. Is it with the NIN, with the name, with the registered date of birth? You know, all of that work. And then the deadline came and they couldn't get registered as well. And they looked at this Section 9, which you talked about, and still gives that leeway, whether it's less than or not, but at least they still gives a leeway. And going from the calculation, 90 days, or not less than 90 days, it's still about November the 25th. Before the 2023 election, if I'm correct. So that leaves us, we're in August. We just started August, Mr. Igini. So that's August, September, October, and some part of November, 4 months. I know that INEC needs to do all of that work, but it's digital, right? That's why INEC employs a digital mode for some of these things. So really, can't we still make some accommodation to ensure that Nigerians who are citizens of the country, they want to participate in this election process, which, by the way, is a good thing. Can't we just try to give them some time to register?
You know, Coyote, quite frankly, as I told you, as a commission, we are very, very excited, because, I mean, what's the point? You are an umpire, you don't see the people in there. And also, we are very, very excited, but when you look at the gamut, the number, the kind of jobs that need to be put in place, because all these PVC must be ready. They must be ready before the election for people to collect. And don't forget also, that is not only this that the commission is also doing. There are all the activities already ongoing that we also have to put in place before the election. But particularly because one of the interesting things about the register, unlike political parties in our country right now, is that the copy of the register must be given to all political parties. So if we are, whatever number of people that essentially we are going to be having as people for this election, it will not change. It will not change, on that election. So really, I also call for understanding, that in any case, it's the commission that will make that decision. But quite frankly, you get the background, the gamut of activities, to get this register ready. I think that we all need to understand ourselves in this respect so that we can get the what they call it, the PVC produced. Don't forget that there's the window for just 7 days. Then another 14 days again, which is compulsory, under the law, 2022 Electoral Act, which you must comply with for objections, claims, and all of that. It's a massive work. I think that we need what we call a joint understanding of where we are to appreciate where we are going. So that, because I also forget that even if you say 90 days, we also know that there are Nigerians. Even after that, you have to go by 90 days. There are also Nigerians who also have attained the age of 18 that unfortunately will not be able to participate. I think, like I was telling a few people yesterday, that look, those of you who have registered, those of you who are unable to do so right now, what you should do is to help mobilize, because it's one thing to register, it's another thing which is far more important for people to show up on that day. I think that's the most important thing, Anora, because, for example, as I said a while ago, if as at 2019, we had 4,004,084, and you had that kind of dismal performance, participation. I think it's something that was very worrisome. Not that we are heading towards what you call it, about 90 million. I think the concern now is how do you have what you call total mobilization of Nigerians, to go into
indeed,
that election. And
indeed,
to avoid the possibility, the reduction of what we call invalid votes, because this election is going to be highly competitive.
Before you begin to talk
and
about invalid voting, which is another aspect of the conversation as well, you are right on point, Mr. Guinea, when you said the important thing is for a significant number of that 95 million target to come out and vote during the elections next year. But then again, there could be some Nigerians yet unregistered who would really want to participate in the elections. And if the extension does not significantly impact on logistics and planning, perhaps INEC can consider an extension. After all, Nigerians say it is a CVR, after all, continuous voter registration. But let's rest on that, Mr. Guinea. Recall your last appearance on the program. It was not a little dust that was raised by your position on Section 115 of the Electoral Act, for which the National Assembly came out to say that you were unnecessarily overheating the polity. And then the INEC National Commissioner also responded saying that it was an administrative thing about within political parties, not necessarily criminalizing it. I wonder what your reaction to that is. And then, I'd also like you to talk about, the many cases in court as a result of the disagreement on party primaries.
Well, thank you very much. Mine is not going to be a reaction, if anything at all, is to further throw light on what I said. All of Nigerians will know that before every INEC activities, I will always, as part of our responsibility under Part 1, Section 2, I think would have been good for Nigerians to read it themselves. That gives those of us who work in INEC the responsibility not only to provide civic and voters education, but also to educate Nigerians on the sound knowledge of democracy and democratic practices. So it's against that background that on Channels Television, we unpack quite a number of provisions of the Act that people need to understand as we move towards the 2023 election. It must be noted that when we had that engagement on a particular Tuesday 2 weeks ago, there was no issue anywhere around the country, controversy about any provision of the Electoral Act. But as part of our education, I was merely drawing attention to the fact that with respect to those who participated in presidential elections are now seeking to invalidate, undermine, and senatorial outcomes of on the 27th of May, that when they do so, they are basically telling the world by virtue of Section 115 of what the Act tends to prohibit. Let me be very clear here. The 2022 Electoral Act, the Independent National Electoral Commission made over 91 proposals for amendments, out of which over 48 were accepted and considered and accepted by the National Assembly. As the umpire and the regulator, which is what the Commission is, our vision that we must conduct elections that meet the aspirations of Nigerian people must be based on certain ideas to deal with historical challenges of delivering credible elections in our country. So every provision in the Electoral Act is intended to cure a mischief. And that is why the Act is in 9 parts, arranged in 9 parts. It has 153 provisions. If you look at all the parts, they deal with different issues. For instance, which I think that as we are going to 2023, which is what I was trying to do, is to not begin to pay attention to those conduct that will undermine the integrity and the confidence of Nigerian people in the electoral process. And that's why I said from Section 114 to 129, detail all offenses, all acts that are prohibited under the Act. Now, With respect to Section 115, it is clear that if we agree that the whole changes we make in the Electoral Act are intended to deal with the behavior of either staff of INEC and largely politicians, then we must accept that under the current 2022 Electoral Act, the Section 115, as a regulator, we have a responsibility as our instrument in the administering the election to use the provision in their way, in their natural and ordinary meaning, all right, in carrying out our job. And I made the point very clear that under the timetable and schedule for activities, between April and June were the period for the conduct of party primaries. This is also the period for the sales of nomination forms. Sales of nomination forms by political party, they have a commencement time and they have a closing time. It is not an open-ended exercise. After nomination, you have the next stage is what you call screening. After screening, you move to the third stage, which is the actual primary itself. Now, stage A, that has to do with the sales of form, you buy a form, you fill it, you sign it, and you submit it to your party. Every election is a constituency election.
Okay, but Mr. Mike,
the distinction I was making.
Yeah, but Mr. Guinea, what is going on about this repeat primaries in Akwa Ibom? Are you the one presiding over them?
Well, under Section 31 and Section 34 of the 2022 Electoral Act, on account of voluntary withdrawal or death, the Commission, we are required to, political parties are expected to conduct primary for replacement. And it should be noted that what is now going on, perhaps after 2023 election, we may have to have a look at Section 31. Because what we are seeing now, it appears to be something that looks like an abuse. Because we are basically like doing what we have done before all over again. As I speak to you today, as I yesterday, today, all throughout the week, what is now happening is that we are having massive number of letters requesting that they want to conduct new primary, which means that the first one they did, they actually were not interested, were not even serious.
So what is the loophole with this Section 31?
What is going on?
What is the loophole?
Now, what is now happening is that some political parties, they sent letters to our office to the effect that there are people that will withdraw and they will send the letters to us in due course. That is not the intendment of Section 31. Then two, it meant that unserious people were kept, which is what we call the placeholder of a thing now, which of course is not in our Constitution of the Electoral Act. There's a practice in the US, as I've said before. So what they are basically doing now is to do all of that again. Today, the primary is going on. Yesterday, they were primary. Throughout this week, last week, this is what is going on right now. So what is not happening is that in future, I want to keep my proposal for now, but in future, we have to look at that section. After the one of death, there are some people now who are hiding because of sudden death. So
Mr. Guinea,
and voluntary withdrawal.
Mr. Guinea, it's a good thing you're a lawyer, and it is said that what the law doesn't frown at, it doesn't condemn, something to that effect. So would it be important at this point to take a second look at the Electoral Act to criminalize, so to speak, the placeholder concept, such that political parties are unable to present it, and then the electoral process can be fast-tracked instead of these delays that we're witnessing?
No. You see, Section 31 and 34 is allowed. I'm saying it's allowed. But what we are seeing clearly now was that as at the time of the actual primaries, most of the people that they presented were not actually what they actually had in mind. They just presented those words as what becomes a facade. And that proposal with respect to what we are still implementing the 2023 Electoral Act, it will be too early now, for us to begin to make proposals with respect to that. But I am saying that if as at those period, all these people that you are now changing are basically all over again. It means that there's something going on, which we are seeing already. Because right now, we are repeating all that we have been doing before. That is the point I'm trying to make. But to close in on the point of Section 115, the fact that a court of law in Nigeria made a pronouncement on that, it does not lie in the mouth of anybody. We lawyers, we can look at the provision of law from different point of view. A citizen's understanding of law should not be seen as a crime. A citizen reading what the parliament had made to the public cannot be a crime. That is the point I am making. And that there's a time for the sales of form, and there's a time for the closure of sales of form. You do screening, you do another.
Well,
so
specifically now,
all of those claims, yeah.
Pardon me, specifically, which of the courts of law do you refer to? Which of the judgments, so we know, and of course, can now interpret?
The woman here, yes, in the Federal High Court in Umar here. That's what I'm referring to.
What was that? What was the judgment? What was the pronouncement of the court regarding that specifically?
The judge was clear. He made also in his. I have a copy of the judgment. He made reference to that section 115 that anybody seen putting himself out that he bought a form, obviously have run foul of section 115 of that of the 2022 Electoral Act. Don't forget that the whole of that idea is to curb. It will curb what this movement up and down within the period of primary. That's what we try to cure. And so all of that must be taken into account. And that takes me to some of the things that are going on. Yes, in Akwa Ibom, you talk about how many petitions. The one that have not been published, particulars of people didn't go to primary that the party submitted. Out of 26 member house, 24 of the 26 we monitor, only 2 that the party submitted for publication. The 24 not monitored by the commission. Similarly, House of Rep, out of 9, only 2 was published. All others, we don't know where they came from. Now, senatorial district in Akwa Ibom, because I'm winding down, and this must be in public record, and we are bound by record. On the 24th of May, we received, INEC first and foremost have what we call a portal. INEC have a platform for what we call the election monitoring across the country. All states are keyed into that platform. We received a notice on the calendar. We have a calendar. On that calendar, we received one at about 8 o'clock in the morning. But later in the night, another calendar because they are updates and all of that. Those 2 calendars with respect to senatorial primary. We have senatorial primary on the 27th of May, not 28th. The 2 calendar, we are bound by record. Well, political party can afford to begin to change the record, days and all of that, but not in INEC, not in INEC. 27th was when we had the senatorial election in Akwa Ibom State. 26th was the one we had the governorship. Well, I've been inundated with so many stories about people who came to do a Nicodemus party primaries on the 26th, that some people came from Abuja to monitor. Let it be on record that on the 26th of May was the day for the governorship primary of the APC in Akwa Ibom State.
All right.
All other political parties have done that. And that the 3 people who ought to have been from Abuja to join the team, because 2 people, 3 people cannot be in charge of everywhere. Only 2 or 3 people, they did not come. And okay. I'm hearing about one Bashi, Otman Bashi, that is being paraded, that he Nicodemously came to Akwa Ibom to monitor. Let it be recorded, let it be known that any staff of INEC deployed to any state, you must come with a letter. That letter must be addressed to me. I will endorse that letter, and I will assign you to join any of the team but no staff of our commission. So if anybody try to impersonate, let it be on record, because by next week, I will be rounding off my service to the fatherland.
All right, Mr. Makigini.
And so that record will be clear that in Akwa Ibom, at Anudofia, that they are parading to be an outcome of 26th primary never happened, never monitored.
All right,
Anything could also be described as a Nicodemus activities unknown to the commission. And that record,
we do thank you.
In any case, the report of that.
All right, Mr. Guinea, we have to go.
Has been sent.
I'm sure they must have gotten the message. So the commission has put out their position from Akwa Ibom State. We do thank you very much indeed for your time today. Mr. Mikey Guinea is the resident electoral commissioner for Akwa Ibom State.